a lot of the commissioners aren't familiar with some of this lingo on trucking and things, but when you talk about a combination tractor trailer, and in K it states that you can have 3 of those on your property. Tell me why you'd ever need that over your house. Tell me why you personally would need 3 combinations at your own house.
Well, a combination to start with would be the truck that pulls a trailer. That would be a combination vehicle, one vehicle.
But a pup on the back of that, is that still one combination, isn't it?
If you had a dump truck and a pup trailer, yes, that'd be one combination.
Why would you need 3 combinations
At a residence.
at your
This is a
residence?
business. But it's a home occupation. It's not.
Well, if you can only have one,
Every
now you can only have one trailer too.
But it's,
If I got a tractor and one trailer, I can pull with it.
It might have different uses, I guess.
Yeah, but you use different trailers to do different
You might
things.
have one,
Under this, you could have one truck and 3 different trailers. And you could have 3 trucks and 3 different trailers. But you couldn't go over 3 trailers even at any point, the way
Well,
I do
I
it.
think what we're trying to achieve here, maybe I'm incorrect, but I believe you guys are also in favor of this because it's been a give and take. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in all of this too, at council meetings and what have you. But if I just came back from LA and it was 12 o'clock at night and I was in my combination and I wanted to come home, go to sleep, that makes sense to me. But to have 3 of those combinations around the house doesn't make sense to me.
John?
Can I just shed a little bit of light on this, maybe use a marker?
Yeah,
Some things
you
I've
bet.
talked or thought about. So I've been doing some research on this, guys, and if you look up most codes, you're gonna find that commercial ag has a noise ordinance of 55 to 60, what we call dB, okay? And that's the loudness that you can have a property.
that's a library.
No, that's not a library.
Yeah, that is.
No, it's not. And I'd be happy to talk with you about this in detail, but just listen to me and then I'm
Okay.
gonna leave and you guys
Okay.
can make decisions, okay? All I want to do is present information. A semi-tractor trailer or a semi-truck is on the order of 90 to 100 dB. If you park a truck in the middle of your property and you have this thing going at 90 dB, you need to have, in order to have 60 feet there, or 60 dB here, if you have 90 dB here, you have to have 80 feet. So if we're gonna keep a quiet boundary, and again, Mark looked this up, or Brent looked that up, you can see.
I did just look it up. 30 decibels is a whisper and 60 is
Yeah.
a normal
Okay,
conversation.
let me add
60
this
is a
to,
normal
in our
conversation.
code,
That's right.
we have our windmills, if we have a windmill or whatever, 35 dB at the property boundary. That's what we allow. If you have a windmill, you can look in the code, 35 dB at the property boundary. Guys, that is a whole lot different than 30 dB. When you look at dB, 6 dB is a doubling. Okay, 10 dB is enormous change. So this is big. And now I add 3 of those. Big. And I also have a big concern about emissions of 3 tractors going at the same time. Big concerns with that I have. So things to think about. You guys do whatever you want. I'm going moose hunting.
there you go.
But things to consider.
Okay, just quick before you go, John.
Yeah.
Commercial ag, when you look that up, is that?
What I found there, I looked that up in Salt Lake City's code.
Okay,
And if you look that up in Salt Lake City's code, you'll find that residential was 50 to 55, commercial ag was 55 to 60, And then they had industrial that went from 60 to 65.
Is that something code says, or is that how much noise the equipment would
Oh, it makes a
make on
lot
the
more than
average?
that.
I'm not so sure, because I hear someone bailing at night and it's not any louder than someone
Yeah.
talking next to me.
From a long ways
I
away.
have a question about this. So this is their code. Is this saying not necessarily that that's the noise at the site of the machine, but that's the noise that should reach the neighbors?
Yeah, this is property boundary stuff.
Okay, so
Like
by
our
the time it
windmill
gets to
code is-
my yard, that's what I should hear?
Yeah, the 35 is property boundary,
Okay.
okay? And if we were to try to keep I would have to do some measurements to see what our town is. I certainly.
John, before you go, your argument isn't so much that if there was, the guy comes in from LA at midnight, turns his truck off, gets up at 6 in the morning, turns his truck on. That's not so much the
No.
issue, is you're looking at the volume.
Yeah, volume, but another thing,
You're saying that this small business is entitled to one tractor trailer combination.
I'm not going that far. What I'm saying is, we need to mitigate these issues. And warming your truck up or putting your truck in a building as you're warming it up or whatever, that really drops a lot of noise. You can send the emissions straight up, you know? So I think there's fixes here, but I think to just say you can have 3 tractor trailers and nothing about jake brakes, nothing about noise warming up, nothing about idling, nothing about emissions, I think we're missing a lot.
Because this is a residence,
It's
it's
a-
not,
yeah.
it's not a commercial
Yeah.
shop.
So I'm not saying we need to cut it down or whatever, I'm saying we really need to maybe decide some other things that are gonna help us get this right so our neighbors aren't affected.
John, just before you go, I think your point is extremely salient. 60 feet and so forth, and it goes back to the point that I made. Okay, if you're on 1 acre, you're gonna have a
Oh,
tough
yeah.
time doing that.
Yeah.
If you've got 20 acres and you're back by the mountain, and the closest neighbors are more than 600 feet away, you're not gonna be, it's gonna be like a light rail.
There's a 1 over R relationship, which means if the further you get, it's an inverse relationship.
Right.
So if you double this distance, you cut that guy in half, it's huge.
And the same thing is true with decibels. To
Well,
go,
that is dB.
to go from one, it's like the Richter scale on earthquakes. To go from one point to the next, it's squares. It's not just additional, it squares, it's
Well,
square.
dB doesn't quite square, but it's like that really, it's a log scale. And not a square scale.
Well, okay. It's,
I do this stuff, guys. This is what I do.
So
So
the
anyway, just
airport
some
is
thought.
funding us with this.
Ju-
I mean,
ju-
we're not in a quiet town. We live next to an airport. I get this all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just used to it.
Okay, I just want
But
to
I'm
get
just
that
saying,
out,
so-
and I'm leaving. You guys get with the
Thanks, John.
thank you, John.
Bring us a picture of
Thanks,
the moose.
John.
Good luck.
So I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So if I just read this, the contracts of what I do all day, if I just read this, and I had a trucking company, I could run 3 trucks and 5 other pieces on my truck.
Yes,
Because
yes.
that's what it says. It doesn't say one or the other. It's, I can have both.
Yep.
At what point does that become industrial? When does it cross the line from being agricultural to industrial? Because that sounds like industry.
Well, and that's right on the nail. That's what we're trying to do. Where does it cross the line and need to
That's
go?
definitely-
To a commercial area. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We start in the home base, everybody does. Now, when does it need to move out of the home?
But
Obviously
Mary,
after
if
5
you
and
were-
after 3. It's obviously
Well,
moving,
that means
after
I
there,
could-
they're moving it to commercial.
It means I could run 8 devices sitting there. I could have 5 backhoes.
And I don't think that was the intent.
I don't think so
agree
Yeah,
with
I
you.
was gonna say, it's
Yeah.
never gonna
There
happen.
needs to be something
Well, if
separate
that's what
there.
it says, that's the intent. That's the thing we have to be
Right.
careful of.
And I don't want to scare anybody here, but all these applications under this will come before the planning commission.
Yeah, that's the idea.
My term ends in about 3 weeks, please.
Who's
Oh, no,
replacing you?
no, you got another.
He's not ready.
Oh, well, and I've made this point before, too. There's a lot of equipment, balers, tractors, so forth, that have exactly the same identical diesel engine in it that a semi or a forklift or a backhoe does.
But Tom,
We could
Tom,
overdo
the
it.
difference is, he fires up his baler twice a year. The guy next door to you who's firing up his semi and leaving, leaves every day.
I've been there,
Things
Jay,
you can
I
put
know,
up with
I know
that you
exactly what
can't
that
do
felt like.
every day. Yeah, you have.
But some of those
And it wasn't
diesel
good.
trucks, just a regular diesel truck is the same way.
Yeah.
Pickup, yeah.
So I kind of think that there's a lot of loophole here.
Well,
Which we designed it with loophole.
everybody's done their best to try and get this down to a numbers game. We had 5 or 6 business owners that were in here helping draft this. And basically, these guys outnumbered anybody else in the room that was for more residential. Now, I think that's a true statement, but at the same time, these two parties were still trying to get to that number. And that's exactly what we're doing again tonight. And I think it's good myself.
Well, I'm not questioning the number, well, I'm gonna question the number, that's a whole nother matter, but the way that this is written today, I don't think it's what
You've got 8
it's not what you intended. At least I hope that's not what you intended, because otherwise I'm gonna go park 5 backhoes in my yard and start a trucking company. That doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. It's the wrong kind of environment to put all of that equipment in.
Well,
Especially if you've got a smaller and smaller lot.
Then
that's
let's write it right now.
Let's rewrite it.
That's,
Help
that's
us
why we're
rewrite
here,
it.
yeah, that's the idea.
That's why we're here. We've been doing this for quite a while. And
A
we're like,
year.
oh, we love some fresh opinions.
Yeah,
Trying to
and
get
and that
rich.
was, and
We
which,
gotta-
Might have worked until you said you write contracts for a living.
That's what I'm reading right contracts for a living. Well, I'm
that's
sorry,
good,
that's how
I
write.
don't do that for a living, and I wrote that. So I'm glad you're here, but that was not the intent.
Yeah, and I didn't think.
And
it
I don't
was, so
believe that he's gonna have the same equipment that I have.
that's Probably not.
That's why I don't think it's an issue for him to have a different,
But it doesn't prevent me from doing both.
I agree with
And
that.
that's
That's
what's
why I
wrong.
made the comment that I made. That was never the intent. So all we need to do is separate the two companies.
Well, and the point that I made is not just an arguing point. If there are 5 on each one of the lots next to me, I'm gonna be surrounded by 40 machines.
But it was, the other thing is you guys are gonna either approve that or not approve it. You're gonna have that option.
But we have to have grounds to not approve it. We can't just say no.
I
We're
have
gonna
a
say,
rec-
well,
I have a
it says I can have
recommendation.
5.
I have a
Okay.
recommendation. I'd like to say that in K, you've got the backhoes, track hose, steers, lifts. And I would like to say that we're gonna allow 4 pieces total, with 2 visible.
See, I have a problem with the whole visible thing. They're either there or they're not, and are we gonna play games to hide it back there? And all you're doing is pushing things to where they're not visible to this person, but
But
they're
they are to
visible
the
to
other
this
guy.
person.
I agree.
So I think that ought to just be totally
Yeah.
wiped out.
How about stored outdoors?
Well, the reason why that's in there, Gary, is you're trying to work with some of the businesses
Well-
that need that equipment. And if they can keep it inside,
Either-
and it's not so,
Well, inside.
What I'm saying is it either belongs in the zone or it doesn't, in the residential zone. And so all you're doing is just forcing it on someone else on the backside instead of on the front side. So I think if it's appropriate for the zone, let's not play games of, oh, today I can see
But it's a
the
matter
top of the
pers-
boom on the backhoe over the top
It's a
of the
matter of
house.
perspective, and if
It
you're
is.
standing on the road, or if you're the next door neighbor, I think
The backyard neighbor.
it's, yeah, or whatever, a neighbor. It's a little different, so I think that's part of the issue.
And so I'm just, I mean,
Well, did
my trees are getting taller and taller
And you can
on
go
all
on.
sides, and then you don't have to
so
listen
given,
to me or
so
see
given
what I do
that-
over there.
so given that,
Call it whoever you want.
if you were to arrange that to say no more than 4 pieces total.
Well, then the next question is this part of the business, or how many people just have a backhoe because it's handy?
Exactly.
That's
Or
what
I
you
like
guys
to,
do
So,
I
doesn't
get
it
jealous
fall
when I
under
go
this
Brent's,
code?
by Brent's house, and he's out there with his skid steer cleaning the pasture.
all the
And,
time.
and if you can claim it as agricultural, it's infinite. You don't have any limit, even though it makes the exact same sound.
Okay, Tom, help me rewrite that sentence, would
Not
you?
the same sound.
I am just fine with the way it is right now, Kim, for the 5-acre parcel. I think if it's larger than 5 acre, we ought to give them more.
Just so you-
I think if it's smaller than 5 acres, down to a 1 acre, I don't know, Derek, do we have any half-acre lots of?
Yes.
We do?
Yes.
There's no way that even one semi is gonna fit on a half acre. much less backhoes and skid steers and everything else.
And
I think that if it's 5 acres, this is dandy. But if people have more acreage than that, we need to give them some leeway. And if it's smaller than that, I would say 1.
I don't want to open up the acre issue. I think it's been tough enough to try and get this thing through. I would like to see K read 4 pieces with a total of 3 visible from the frontage, or 2 visible, excuse me, 2 visible
So
from the frontage,
you're dropping 1 on each?
1 on each. And then go down to N, which is an entirely different type of operation. And instead of 3 combinations, you can have 1.
I don't think that's fair.
Okay, that's my attempt.
If you're in business,
A year and a half later.
if you're in a business and you have different, like was said, you've got a tanker, you've got a belly dump, you've got a,
Then you don't belong in the yard next to my house.
Only one's gonna leave at a time, that's what Tom's saying.
Well, and what if?
I think that it's
Has
fine.
it been addressed, the idea of, I mean, we talk about, if I want to put up a barn, which can be really obnoxious, barns can be irritating.
Come look at Larry
I have
Huntington's.
to have an easement. I mean, I have to have so many
Well,
feet
if you're gonna
from
put
the
your,
property line.
your goat in it, then it's
Yeah.
gonna have to be 100 feet away.
That's right. If I put up a building that's gonna house animals, I have to have so many feet from my neighbor's property line. So what if this said something about this equipment has to be so many feet from a residence?
So maybe John's 80 feet for the decibels, I don't know.
And then that takes care of Tom's
Is it from a
issue.
residence or from a property line?
I would say from a residence.
I would say from a property line, but
Yeah, property line, not residence.
Okay?
Yeah,
So then
we're
you're,
back into acreage and property.
but, so then
Okay, and-
that takes care of Tom's
property's
question.
easier than acreage, though.
You can't get away from it. I mean, an apple is not a peach and it's not a pear.
I think we have to realize, Tom, we've been on this a year and a half, and if we could just get through K and N some way here tonight, recommend that to the council, I'm almost sure they're gonna buy into this. And if we need to tweak this thing down the road because of circumstances or complaints or whatever happens, we still have the ability to do that, but we need something to run with after a year and a half.
I just don't feel like that I want 40 pieces of equipment around me on those 6 subdivisions next to me that touch my property.
Are they in Hebrew?
Yeah.
So you
Well, you
tweak
can
it, you've already
control them in
grandfathered
Hebrew
it.
though.
No,
in
no,
Daniel.
no, right here.
Oh,
They're
It's-
in
it's-
Daniel.
Oh.
It's,
okay.
and there's question whether they were subdivided illegally or not, but they're on record, it's a county, there's 7 of them, excuse me. And if we allow this much without saying, you know, go ahead, you've only got a postage stamp sized property, but go ahead, load it up. I don't want to do that.
So what if N, if you go with however many pieces we agreed to, 3 or 6 or 12 or however many pieces.
We brought it down
On
from
which
9
one,
to 7.
K or N?
Well, if in K,
Okay.
I think your proposal, your motion was 4
4.
or 3 or whatever, 4 and 2.
They reduced each of them by 1. so
So you went from 4
4
and 2, and what if you instead of doing that, you make N say, instead of putting it as combinations, 1 tractor trailer and 3 other pieces. Because then you could pull a belly dumper, you could pull a flatbed, you could pull whatever back there, you could have all of those pieces, same number of pieces in those 2. One's a transportation company with 1 cab over, 1 cab in it, and the other pieces, and the other kind of business, same number of pieces. So if it's 3 or 2 or 6 or whatever you agree to, but those 2 match, and it's a one or the other, you're either transportation
either one or the
company
other.
or you're the other company.
But
Okay.
maybe you are the transportation company, and I have 3 semis, flatbeds, and I also
Well, I'm
have
just saying
3
that,
fork trucks that I use to load and unload things off of them when they come into the yard. And so I don't know the answer, I'm just being devil's advocate here.
no,
but-
He doesn't need that.
I know you.
Yeah,
I think that what we've got is great for the average.
All right.
I just want to ask Tom a question. On that, over by your place that you're talking about, do they have business licenses?
No, But he showed up with that concrete truck anyway.
It was his
Full-size
personal
concrete
Yeah.
pump truck.
I don't think you did.
And we heard him every single morning when he left, and we heard him when he came in at night.
So we're not gonna be able to fix that
No.
Nope, you
anyway.
can't fix that one
Can't
anyway.
fix that.
Because that's not his company. Wasn't
That's
he
right.
driving for
That's just
somebody?
driving
That's
his
not
truck.
Yeah.
an
I was
issue.
gonna say, it's
Personal
just
vehicle.
coming-
Let's suppose he did have a business, and he wanted to do that.
He's gonna come before you, you're gonna review it, he's gonna give you a photo of everything he's got.
I
You're
can't,
either gonna allow it or not.
I can't turn him down based on this.
He's gonna be able to do 3 combinations or 5 pieces
Mark, what you?
Per lot,
per lot.
and there's 7 of
So
them.
that's an issue.
Okay,
So we
Mark.
need to add something about smaller size lots.
Yes,
That's
Okay.
where you're.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, you got something?
My understanding that these 7 lots that you're talking about, are they privately owned or are they rental properties?
Good question. It's in a state of flux right now. The previous owner is being really tight to the vest on what he has done. And the person who has supposedly bought it has made statements when he didn't think anybody was listening about how he's gonna put it out for bed and breakfast.
So-
Good question. We don't know the answer to that.
So I guess where I was going with this, if you, I mean, it's probably
We'd like to get
kind of
this
out
in
of
place so
the,
that he can't have it.
in here, you have to own the property that you're parking or having your business
That's in
on.
there.
It's not a rental
There is
piece of
another part of the
property.
code that allows a bed and breakfast, so they'd have to take that out.
So I'm
So
just
the last
saying
item
that
on there
maybe,
says no bed.
No bed breakfast.
I can see that you have 7 people that have, you have the possibility of having that 7 around you, but
Listen, I am the biggest advocate for letting people make their own living and do what they're gonna do. But at the same time, to have it just arbitrary, well, this is what you can have regardless of the size lot, I don't think fits.
And I
here-
think we
here's
understand
another
that that's
thought
what
I've
Tom
had
feels.
about all the way through this whole process, and it's probably discriminatory, but could Daniels limit the number of businesses they will allow to have in Daniels?
Of a type in an RA5 zone.
Of any, not type of business, but the numbers of businesses that they'll allow to
Business
have in
licenses.
Daniels at one given time. And
Regulated
there,
like
and here's
liquor
where I'm going
licenses.
with this, where I came up with it from. The state of Utah only allows X amount of liquor licenses in the state at one given time. So,
So no, you can't have a
So-
liquor license with your trucking business.
I can't even have a drop in my truck. Or on my breath, or anything else, or on
You
the
got
truck.
30,000 right behind the cab.
There you go.
30,000 gallons.
But, you know, why couldn't Daniels mitigate some of the amount of, or size of, not size of businesses, but the number of businesses that are allowed to operate in Daniels at one time, kind of based off this Daniels liquor license that it's given to bars and restaurants?
I think you could
To the
do that. I think you could do that.
I think you're
except
onto
for-
something, 'cause-
Except for you're talking home businesses, and so you might have a little business in every home.
If
And
we
you
can,
want that.
Well, and then you have the property right, comes right into that.
Yeah.
Property
so if we
right.
can do that, we can say there are already enough houses here and we're not gonna let anybody else build.
Build.
I've heard that sentiment
No,
from a lot of the
I-
public, so.
That's like, I'm here now, so let's close the door.
Exactly.
And I believe that, I like that.
But I understand what you're saying.
I know what
but
you're saying too,
But I think if
I
you try to
think we
limit
did.
how many home businesses you can start, I mean, I don't know if you can do that.
Mark, at your house, how much
We're a
acres do you
magnet for
have?
having business comes out here. 5 acres, wide open, green, you know, there's the hay field. All we gotta
You're
do
talking
is.
like a real business, I'm talking about, this is a home occupation, this could be anything. I sell knitting supplies.
I tell you, a lot of these home
I've worked for a long
businesses,
time. I didn't know that.
Barry, a lot of these home businesses, to me, they're true businesses. I mean, they're only this far away from having a big commercial shop in Heber somewhere. Ask this electrician right behind you. He doesn't have a shop at his house. He's got it over in Heber. But if you want to buy commercial property and you can't afford it, you move to Daniel and you buy a 5 acre residential lot, and then you do with it what you want.
that's the problem, is you can't do what you want. We're zone RA, aren't we?
Well, what
Residential
does that
agriculture.
Yeah, but our
For a
code,
small
But you guys
business.
aren't even-
Small business.
That's what we're trying to
Well,
get
the code
into.
actually does.
Because you're skirting right on the edge of turning it into heavy
Well, which
industrial.
we've agreed we don't want, but we
This is an
want.
expansion of the existing code, totally.
But you guys won't open up any commercial.
We had no small
Even though it's
businesses
there, you guys
outside
won't
the
give
home
it up.
prior to this.
Won't
The
open it.
problem with that
So
is,
you can't say you want it to go commercial because you won't open it to commercial.
the problem with that is that Daniel
even
has
though it shows it's
always
commercial on
had people operating business on their property. Even before it was a town, even clear back, I first saw Daniel in 1970 when I came here, and it was that way then, it's that way now. There's more space and people are going to do that unless you prevent them from doing it. And if we have the zoning to prevent them from doing it, then it becomes an enforcement issue. And we're right back to where we began.
But also the county let people subdivide into 7 quarter-acre parcels and create other problems. So since they did it then, should we do it now? It's the hard question. It's kind of in-
How do you get rid of something that's already there though, Gary? That's,
No,
that's,
but because it's already there, do you let it happen again?
well,
what we're
That's
trying
the
to
question.
do with 825 is to make peace between agriculture and business. And it can be done. This is very good, it's getting close.
Well, it's not so much between agriculture and business. It's agriculture and a
Residential.
certain type of business.
Well, okay,
It's,
I
it's
agree with
the
that.
industrial side of it. It's not
I
mom
agree
and
with that.
pop gonna sell widgets out of their basement. That's not it. It's,
Well,
because the code actually, I mean, if this is even close to it, says, home occupation is conducted entirely within the residential dwelling and property. Well, is a trucking company actually conducted in the property?
No,
it's not.
existing
It's
code
just
says
based there.
entirely in the house. It doesn't say anything about the property.
So, I mean, that doesn't even apply to this either. You can say, no, I'm not allowing any trucking company in because it doesn't meet this. You're not conducting your business. And so this isn't right, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying limit them or stop them. I'm just saying this isn't right.
Well, let me see if I can get my point across
Okay.
a little differently. What we're trying to do is to get some kind of an equal playing ground or a set of rules that will satisfy both those parties. Whoever was here first or second, doesn't matter, but we're trying to get something in place that can satisfy both of those parties.
I would agree with that, but you're running right on the edge of a lot of the residents that moved here because it was zoned residential agricultural, not mini industrial. So you're kind of changing the rules out from underneath all of those folks that moved here, right?
well, I disagree with that.
Well,
Wait.
if-
When they moved here, Daniel has always had these kind of operations, always.
And there's been public hearing after public
I
hearing. People
agree.
come out and you know what?
I agree.
Who's
Yeah.
been out? The business owners.
Yeah.
Nobody else will come out and say a word.
And that's what it comes down to, is we're trying to regulate certain aspects out of existence.
It may be, there will come a point in time,
No, we're not.
No, we're
there
not.
will come a point in time where we may have to, where we may have to change this. In other words,
God,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
Just to get to this, I don't think it's
no, what I'm saying is we may have to grandfather some, in other words, my business has been there since '85. And I don't think we've ever had a complaint.
Let's put another bullet point here. All businesses in existence as of November of 2017 shall be grandfathered.
No.
No,
No.
Then that doesn't work.
Well, all businesses that were operating legally as of that
That's
date
my point.
could be grandfathered, but not otherwise.
Well, I'm not, okay, let's go back.
It
Let's
would
go
have
back
to
to
be either way.
when I got my business license.
If it was legal.
Yeah, I'm not sure honestly if it was legal or not. I don't know how I could be. So that being said, I think basically you're gonna put all of the contractors out of business. if you
Yes.
do that.
and that's
Yes.
not.
And some of them probably
Unacceptable.
need to be out of business. I'm not gonna argue that point. I'm glad King's is gone. Okay?
That's cruel.
I mean,
Who is
I never
that?
shot there, though.
but if we've got to make some changes, I'm for the grandfathering thing. if that's what it takes. And I can understand everything you guys are saying. At the same time, my kids grew up here, and we had people driving home in big trucks. We had people, and it was a wonderful environment. And I don't think that we want to get rid of those people.
And I don't know how to create, I honestly don't know how to create code that addresses the fact that people drive home in their trucks versus somebody who wants to run a trucking company out of their home.
I think it's been interesting to come to the town council meetings, and you have these 6 or 7, 8, 9 business folks show up, and they have an interest. They definitely have an interest in this. So it goes back and forth between them, the residents
Right,
out here,
yes.
the town council, and after a year and a half of this stuff, this is what we've got. And we're really only,
There's no bad people in this room.
No.
we're only 2 items away from making a recommendation to the
Exactly,
council
exactly.
accept this. And boy, if we can do that in the
Well,
next
there's
half
a-
hour,
there's a-
that'd be
I
wonderful.
think we're a lot further than that still, unfortunately.
There's a
Yeah,
question.
I don't think it's them too, we jumped to the back.
There's some others that are.
Good
probably-
job, Kim, for keeping it going. Pushing, you're trying.
Mary,
So there's a question of verbiage, that's what I got.
Okay,
Yes.
what would you
So-
think it
So I'm
should
just
say?
saying that there's some issues,
Yes.
if I'm gonna sit in a court of law and I'm gonna try to stand up to this,
Cool.
I think we're in trouble,
Okay,
okay? Just because of some of the verbiage that's in here. But the other, and it has to do with, well, you're gonna conduct it entirely within my residence, that's a problem, because we know they're not going to.
But that doesn't say that, it says residence or property.
I'm gonna conduct my whole business on that property, and the trucking company does not do that, nor there's an excavator or anything else. They park their stuff there, but they don't conduct their business there. So there's a problem with verbiage here, is what I'm saying, so that needs to be corrected. And then there's some issues with the number of items that we still need to allow. So many visible, so many, and I really think that N and K ought to match.
Yeah,
There's
there's some
one or the
problems.
other, but the number of devices should be the same.
With verbiage on beginning where it says, existing permits shall be renewed when applied for. And then later it says they have to meet requirements, but I think that should totally be struck because that basically says they'll be renewed.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Why shouldn't it be renewed?
well,
Let's talk about
there's
that.
some verbiage later on that explains that. And so I'm saying get rid of that from there where it just says they'll be renewed when applied for. Because they'll be renewed when applied for, meeting the conditions that are spelled out further in here, so
Still have
just
to
take
meet
it
the
out.
conditions.
Well, that's complaint driven. In other words, when we talked about.
Exactly,
this-
but I'm saying it's in there and that can stay there, but here it says, existing permits in 8/2508 approval period, existing permits shall be renewed when applied for. Doesn't say if they meet conditions or anything else. So I'm just saying, cross that out there because it's covered in
Yeah.
more detail later on. Because you're
Okay,
opening
so
it up.
where is it covered in more detail?
Order renewals.
What was the
It's 11,
purpose of existing
825,
permits shall be
825,
renewed when
11.
applied for? Is
Yeah,
that-
okay.
Is that stating when the permit should be renewed, or is it actually stating that all permits will be renewed?
Well, to me, it says all permits will be
Well, that's what
renewed.
it says.
Unless I read further,
Yeah, but it's a single statement, and that's what it says. So-
and so I'm saying that should
But if
just be
you're covered
crossed
down
out.
in here, you don't need it in the front.
Right, so I'm just saying cross
You're
it
covered
out.
down here, so.
What part covers it, Gary?
I think it's
2511.
2511.
Renewal, exactly.
So what part did we cross out? Where we
I'm
at?
saying in
There's a statement.
8/2508, I would cross out existing permits shall be renewed when applied for.
Because there are conditions to have it renewed, and those are
Uh-huh.
specified already, so.
And they're fine, but it makes it look like that all you gotta do is apply and it's renewed when you look at this one.
Well, if there hasn't been a complaint, then.
Well, then
And that's what it
you
says
know
in
the requirement,
825.
then it just goes, so it's just saying this is going to do it regardless. The first one says, you apply, it gets renewed. And later on in 82511,
Yeah,
it
just take that
says,
out.
So an existing application would be renewed. Is that?
Well, that's what, if they follow what's in 8/2511, so that's let's let that cover that rather than having
Okay.
two different conflicting statements.
If it's the approval period, which is 825A, then that statement doesn't really apply to the period. It applies to renewal.
Yeah.
So just strike it from here and let renewal cover that, and that's fine.
Perfect. Hey, we
So-
made a
so we're
decision.
crossing
No,
We're crossing out existing permits shall be renewed on applied.
Under
Is that-
under
Yeah.
825A,
Right.
because it's already covered by the renewal section later on.
Okay.
While you're in high gear, Barry, move us to K and N and
Well-
combine them.
We're still on the first page.
Okay, wait a minute.
Somebody jumped us to the back.
What part in 82511 talks about renew? I don't see the word renew in either of those two paragraphs.
82511's title says biannual renewal and review of business license.
And home occupation permits.
Which is what that other statement was talking about, was a renewal, not the period, not the approval period.
So there should be something in 82511, how frequently they have to be renewed.
Every 2 years.
So they should say that. Well, that's in the title, but it's not defined.
Is it defined when it says it in the title?
The title's not just-
Well, the title says biannual.
So if you took that, if you read the second sentence of 82511, if signed complaints have been received, which is what you were talking about, then it gets reviewed, otherwise, and you can put otherwise,
Put the same way as it.
it either gets revoked or it gets renewed. And so put
And then it
may
says
be
by,
revoked or renewed.
here it says by.
Because that's really what you're doing, is you're talking about the renewal right there.
That's perfect.
And not under, this is under the wrong section at all, so stick it under 82511.
Why don't we cut and paste that one
No,
sentence?
well,
and
it
put
can't be a sentence standalone, because then it's a standalone sentence, and it says if I apply for it, I get it.
Yeah.
And it should be, if I apply for it, I get it if
So it's
there aren't
covered.
signed complaints.
Right.
So 82511 takes care of it then.
But
Cross that out.
Yeah, it's probably not quite as clear as it ought to be.
it ought to be a little bit clearer here. If you can take this sentence and add it right here, right after the first sentence, and just change it slightly so that it says, existing permits shall be renewed when applied for if signed complaints have not been received.
Or maybe just say existing permits, renewals of existing permits can be applied for, or must be applied for on a biannual basis.
Yeah, but it ought to say that, because it doesn't, it's
Yeah.
not clear that that's what.
And then if signed complaints have been received, the business license upon,
Can be reviewed.
subject to review.
well,
Yeah.
I would change that to say if conditions are met, because it may not be a complaint, it might be something
Yeah.
else, if conditions are met.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else would there be?
There would be something that the town initiated on its own without a
Oh,
complaint.
that's possibly true. You change some zoning. For planning,
The next people,
Maybe come in sooner than you
but
think.
that ought to be
Yeah.
built into that paragraph right there,
Yeah.
instead of on the first.
yeah, I know the complaint is what drives us to that, but that would fall under the conditions if we can change it to say it's conditions are met.
Well, the hard part is, we're gonna do all this work on this, and send it back to the council, and you're gonna mess it up.
And they're going to be saying the same thing about us.
Exactly. We're gonna bounce it back and forth.
We had it down, what did you guys do to it?
Do you have anything else to say?
Other than just some other general issues that we've hashed to death, and so I'm not going to bring them up, but I do agree that we have a problem with K and N. But I'm
I
not
just
sure
think
we're
they
going
ought-
to solve it.
I just think
because-
they need to match.
Because,
That's all.
you know, I can have this equipment and then I could have a backhoe and skid steer that's really not part of the business. It's what I have around the house. It's what we all wish we had around the house. You know, I don't know how we do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And when is it not yard?
Can we use any of this information to make that decision?
I think so, and then the question is, she mentions yard equipment. Somebody might think that that beautiful piece of equipment belongs on the front lawn, and maybe it does. In fact, I might enjoy
Manure
driving by
spreaders
it.
are.
No, I wouldn't put it on my lawn. So,
Yeah.
the question is running versus non-running equipment too.
Like,
Because
is it
non-running
running
equipment
as
doesn't
yard?
make any noise. I don't know.
You can plant flowers in it.
Yeah.
But then you get to where, if your house has wheels, but your cars don't, right?
Are
You might live in
Daniel or
Daniels.
Charleston?
Or it could be, it has, your car is your house, and it has wheels.
Maybe Charleston.
So can we fix N and K, or is that it?
I still really don't like the visible thing.
I agree.
I think it's
It's
just,
either permitted or it's not.
Yes, yes.
and do we play the game of trying to hide it somehow? I don't think
I don't know,
so.
we kinda did that with the gravel pit years ago, and made her put up that berm. We just
And it
didn't
makes a
want-
difference.
We just want, oh, it does make a difference, but we just didn't want to see it anymore. Let them do whatever they want.
We just don't want to
Is
see
that
it.
the right
Now we
thing?
just can't see how big it really
Yeah,
is
it's huge.
until you get on Google Earth.
Yeah.
Realize what I dropped.
That's the east bit, Deer Creek.
So you take out the visible?
I don't, it either is permitted or it's not.
Because I made in the back of the field doesn't
It
fix
it
it.
hides it from some people, but not others, so it either is permitted or it's not.
So we don't get any arguments about, well, it's back there or it's not visible or it's up there. So it's on the front yard and it's a nuisance and people complain or whatever,
Because
so.
then they get a complaint, you have to move your stuff, because your building permit's, or your business permit's not gonna be renewed
Right.
because you got written complaints.
Because you made a mess. If you haven't made a mess and you didn't get any complaints,
Yeah, but you can get a complaint from a bad neighbor.
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with your equipment.
yeah.
I go out on plenty of those. Gets down to the thing, they don't like their dog. That's the
So,
problem.
I don't like that.
so if we went to K now and we said we're gonna, no more than 4 pieces total, that's it.
And
I-
these-
I don't
these
agree.
are- These are pieces that are
Tom?
related
To
to
the
a permanent
business.
business,
Why don't you
right?
agree? Just because of the yard?
That's 7, 8.
Any arbitrary number will not manifest itself on different lots.
So let's add Q.
If you want to say, if you want,
Let's add Q.
You forgot
Home
people.
occupations are not allowed to have large equipment if the acreage is less than 5 acres.
I'd go with that.
That's an issue.
Yes, it does. Something
Because
you
there's a lot
restricted
of
somebody's
them
property.
that,
Yep.
That's right.
jumps.
Can't do it, can you?
Well, we can do it, but we go to court and then.
Yeah,
look,
I mean,
Yeah.
And we're worried about paying for a gravel road that we washed
that
out.
we washed out with the water line.
So we don't want to have to buy
I
any.
might wanna mention that the town attorney's $350 an hour.
I was gonna say my daughter.
Brent, I think
graduated from law
that has a lot of
school, so
merit
maybe she
to it.
can support
Well, I think that's
both.
what you're worried about.
Yeah.
Not just that,
Well, I know, but that's,
but you get somebody with a large piece, 30 acres, 40 acres, if they're decent people, they will make sure that they never impact any of their neighbors.
yeah, I mean, that's,
But you can't guarantee they're gonna be decent people.
No, but at the same time, I don't think, okay, my place right there is quite a bit larger than the 6 acres with the 7 pieces. But yet, I would be limited to one set that they have 6 times.
4?
That's not right.
As long as they're made by Ertl.
Yeah,
I think that we go with
Those are all
4 and add the 5 acre, I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're supposed to have 5 acre zoning. But
It's not.
yeah,
if it's an existing lot of record, then it doesn't qualify.
yeah. Well,
One thing we've talked about is a percentage of the size of the lot. I don't know whatever happened to
That's
it,
in here.
but it's a
That
percentage
was
on
my
the size of the
question.
home. Why
We've
not a
talked about
percentage on the size of the lot?
Yeah, but it wasn't, it's in there, but it's not.
Then you're not running into
It's
the, oh, I
in-
don't
it's under
know.
G. The whole business can use more than 20% of the, that's 20.
Home.
That's just on the home, it doesn't talk about
Oh,
the
yeah, that's in the
lot.
home.
Yeah, that's true.
So what percentage of the lot can be used for your business?
but even if you did say that 20% of your lot and you've got 50 acres, you're still limited to 5 machines.
Exactly. Perfect. I don't know if that's a problem.
You can cap
You
it,
go over it.
still have the percentage, the acre, or the lot size and cap it to
You got 20 acres
maintain
subdivided
that you
into 4 or
don't
5
get
acres.
that
And that's,
large.
that's exactly what this place has done. That's exactly what they
That was
did.
the concern on that, huh? So a big lot could get too big of a.
What size is your home parcel? How many acres do you have in your home?
What is it, Barry?
3 3/4.
Ours is.
I can't remember if
The
it's
same.
3 3/4 or 4 3/4, I always
Three.
forget.
And that's,
3 3/4.
and that's where you've got your shop set up and everything?
That would make it so that he couldn't run in.
Yeah,
Can't do
that,
anything.
that would put
And
him
I don't
out.
think that's right.
So
No, I don't
that's
either.
why I was saying, you could have just cap it to a number of pieces of equipment, but if you get underneath a certain amount of acreage, your percentage goes down at that point, under 5 acres.
So let me ask you something about excavating companies and whatever, and that kind of ties to you. They don't just
Right.
drive these things down the road, they're sitting on a trailer somewhere, right? I mean, they don't drive a track hoe down the road. Maybe Doug Wagstaff does, but I don't know anybody else that would do that. Sorry, that's out.
Russ Witt.
Your list goes on and on.
But that,
Don't worry,
in those
Doug
types of
Wagstaff.
situations, those come into the same thing as transportation. So they're sitting up on a trailer, I would imagine, track hoes and backhoes and skid steers. I don't
Well,
think
not
they're driving
necessarily, say you
them.
only have one trailer and you've got your 3 pieces of equipment,
Yeah.
one day you need your backhoe, so you go home, you load that sucker up, you take it over,
But
do
if
the
he's
work.
got a trailer that's hauling a track hoe, then he's the transportation company
Seriously.
now.
It's part of his excavation business.
Yeah, but it
Splitting
then
hairs.
falls
See,
into
that's the
this.
case where you end up
Because
with
there's no
3
there's no
semis and
cap
5
over here.
backhoes.
Yeah, that's the.
So
That's why Pam added the dump truck part in on the,
I
on
took
her
the
part.
liberty.
yeah.
I think that what we've got is a really good start. I think that we're just right there.
I think you just need to work out between the N, the K and the N.
Help us, we've been
And maybe
working on
find
that
something
for a
that-
Make a
while.
motion.
What are you
I'm sorry?
I can't do motions.
Yeah.
No, I told Kim, make a motion, and I think.
I didn't hear what you said.
I
Say
think
it
you'll be
again.
surprised of how many of you agree
What
with
did you
him.
I really think you have K and N that are the problem, and there needs to be something tied into acreage, even if you tie it in with
And I think
sound.
John's getting.
You drive it with sound, you say, if you've got a 1 acre chunk, you're not gonna be able to put a whole bunch of equipment on there, because the sound is gonna drive it out. Okay?
Maybe
So
that's the way to go.
So that lets you limit the small lots. The bigger lots, you've got 50 acres, then you still don't want a trucking company or an excavation company putting up shop there and having, 15 track hoes back there. So that limit still stays there. But if you add this limit to it, the sound ordinance, I think that's gonna take care of all those small lots. And you don't have to specifically say, you're allowed 1 device on that, or 1 piece of equipment, or 2 pieces of equipment. You let the sound drive it.
Well, that's the problem with the decibel. We've had complaints about noise. Well, to get a reading on noise, you have to be there when the noise is going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I go out on a complaint-driven thing, and we've had the same thing on dust. That these guys are driving around the building, running their J brakes. I'm sitting out there for 4 hours, I don't see none of that going on.
You
So-
have the nuisance ordinance.
Drive around a building.
Everybody's got a cell phone.
They only, it's impossible.
Can you put
It's not
the 80?
continuously.
So that becomes, that's an enforcement issue.
Well, then,
Yeah, I don't know how you enforce it unless you.
One of the-
Why do we need to combine?
Well, even then, they have to be there when the noise is happening. It's like, when I get there, it's quiet.
Eric, review for me again. You said that the 5 acre requirement would not work on this. If it was just that these machines or devices or trucks, whatever,
That's why you
were
said
allowed
you
on
changed
5
this
acre lots,
before.
this would still allow home occupations that weren't
That doesn't matter.
equipment oriented.
Trucking business.
Would we still be in a problem saying that in order to have K as N, we have to have 5 acres to do it?
Let's do something.
So maybe you don't do it that way.
Yes,
yeah.
Maybe
would
you.
still be a trouble.
What would the problem be?
Just because they've been here, they've had their property, you got 3 acres, now you've restricted that
Okay.
property right.
Okay, I understand.
If
Thank
your,
you.
if your intent, let me just, see if I understand. If your intent is to limit the number of devices based on the acreage,
Most of these guys.
Not just limit it,
Can be.
but somebody who has more property, I think, has more right.
We just.
so you leave these other 2 ordinances, I mean, you gotta rewrite them to come up with whatever number matches. Let's just say that they are the way they are. If you add something that says not to exceed 1 device per acre,
I would go with that in a heartbeat.
then that allows you, so you still have the,
I can't
whatever,
agree.
6 by pieces. Not
You don't have
to
to
exceed,
share your
Oh,
table.
go right ahead.
not to
Can't hear
exceed,
you.
not to exceed 1 piece of equipment per acre.
I would not put the limit on of 5 devices. Because if somebody's got 10 acres and they're being
No,
responsible.
you leave the 5. I'd still,
wouldn't do that.
otherwise you've got an excavation company that's set up shop in an agricultural area, and that's not what you want.
Well,
So this limits that, but it limits it to say how far you can go before you become industrial.
if it works going up, it works going down. I think
I
that
don't understand that. What do you mean?
if we are going to reduce the number that people can have on a smaller lot, I think we need to open it up for people with larger
I
lots.
totally disagree.
Yeah, I disagree.
We can agree to disagree.
No, but the reason I
Because
say
we
that
have
is
as much
because
right on our 1 acre as that guy on 20 acres.
That's exactly
No,
my
but
point.
you're saying that's not true. He has more right, you've said, because he has more acreage.
No,
That's what you just
You
said.
said that.
That's what you said.
he
That's
has,
not true. That's not what you meant.
Is that what you're not meaning? Because that's what it said, is what you're saying, is
I
they
think-
should be able to have more because they have more acreage.
okay,
But
you start out, you've got 20 acres, right? You've got the maximum 5 and 3.
right, just like everybody else.
You need 4 more. So
Go get an industrial.
you divide your property and now you've got 2 10-acre pieces, you can have your 4 more. I don't think that's right,
It's their property.
okay?
And they have to come before the board, find
What
that
is,
out.
what is the difference if they
Okay, we'll fix
have
it.
20
Unless
acres?
you're living on the parcel,
Yeah,
you
they
can't put
can't do
anything
it.
there.
Exactly, so they have to come
It does say
here
that.
and get, yeah,
it does say that.
That's
it
right.
has to
It
come
does say
before
that.
you
Yeah,
guys.
you have to live there.
so it's
Yeah.
not gonna be any good
And
to
if you're
subdivide.
in
Exactly.
that case, then the other piece is not occupied.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could
we
put
could
equipment on it.
I don't think there's as much problem with large lots as there are with small ones. I think the larger the lot, the more we can forgive.
I
I
disagree.
It has to be.
Well, I think the
Our mess
impact,
just
what
gets
Tom's
bigger.
saying is the impact
It
on
just
a large
gets
lot is not as big as it is on a small lot.
That's exactly
To
what
your
I'm saying.
neighbor, the impact.
To the neighbor.
Right.
To the
Unless you
neighbor,
park
to
it on your
the
backside.
town, to anyone.
But the question though,
I mean,
really,
if I've got
to me,
20
is
acres,
do
I
you
can-
want to allow that business to grow in a residential, agricultural zoned space? Or do you want that business to grow to that size in a commercial or a industrial?
See, when you
designated zone?
say, are we gonna allow them to grow to that?
Well, that's
I-
what you said in the beginning. This is
No, I have-
Where's
I-
that limit?
I have issue with that because, I don't know what happened before 1970 in Daniel, but I have seen Daniel since 1970. And it's always had this kind of thing.
Well,
And I don't think it's something that's new or happening or people are taking advantage of it. It may be true that as other areas are closing down, people are coming out here because we do require 5 acres. And I think 5 acres, well, gosh, I can park all sorts of backhoes out there for
There's
5
been
acres.
some precedent though. Remember when they were delayed on Jordanelle Dam and the contractor stored all of his equipment over by where the church is?
Oh, and I
And
can
the
tell you,
county kicked him out.
and I can tell you about Ross Beathers, he had at least 20 trucks
Yeah.
on that 1 acre
But
lot.
this is old news.
It is, but I'm just saying, you were bringing up that it used to be in the past. I'm still saying, if the business is that big,
I'm not bringing up what used to be in the past. What I'm saying is it's not something
No,
that's
we know
expanding. This is something that always has been.
okay, but we're saying
Always
going
has been.
forward, what do we want? We
I don't
can't
think it's
control the
right to
past.
regulate things out of existence.
Well, I don't think we
I
are.
don't
Nobody's
suggest
I
that
don't,
at
I
all.
don't think we are there, Tom, but we're not allowing them to increase.
Well,
Things are grandfathered, just
I'm
like
one
those
guy.
7 lots by you.
No,
We
no,
can't
no,
get
we're
rid of
I'm
those.
one guy.
And
I can be
I
outvoted
think we're-
pretty
I
easily.
think we're actually agreeing, because they can't subdivide unless they build another house
And
and live in it.
And do another business.
So they can't
Well,
get
they,
this
no, the
permit.
person that owns that house and living in that house would have to do a second business.
That's right.
They can't live in 2 houses.
That's right.
I
So
guess.
so I
in
don't
Utah
see
they
that,
could.
I don't see that that's gonna happen.
We have for years.
If a guy's got 20 acres and he's got 6 machines, I don't see that he's doing the same thing that a guy with 1 acre and 6 machines is
I
doing.
agree with
I
that.
agree with that entirely.
And I think that if we're going to limit the lower end, we also ought to be able to be lenient on the upper end.
But if
That's
you-
my
So
opinion.
to what
And if
extent?
you don't agree with that, then we've agreed to disagree.
So to
I don't know what
extent,
everybody
though,
else's
Tom?
feelings are.
How far would you take it?
Where's that
Okay.
line drawn? Where do you
The blue
go
one's
from
the best one.
residential agricultural and move it to industrial? Where's that line? I thought that's what you guys were
Yeah,
talking
we're
about
trying to keep
earlier.
it residential.
Where does it move to industrial? That it either has to go someplace else or it stops growing? I'm not saying get rid of them at all,
That's a good question.
because that's really what you're trying to figure out, is when does it stop being residential agricultural and when does it start being industrial and they have to go someplace else? or at least a
Four
portion of it.
pieces.
Or at least, well, whatever the number of pieces.
Whatever the number is.
What is your point with that, Gary?
The point is they can put them all in one corner, and they've created the same density as if it was a 1 acre lot.
Which is what I
And the
do.
same eyesore as if it was a 1 acre lot, or you could make.
That's exactly how my equipment sits, exactly.
And if I'm the one living next to that corner, I don't care that you've got 20 acres, because you parked all 5 trucks under my
On
bedroom.
your line.
Yeah.
He didn't like your drawing, Gary.
No, I love his drawing.
He doesn't
I'm
like
gonna
the
add to
decibels.
it.
And part of what's happened to me, or to all of us, I think, with this 825 thing is, it's so driven by those who have had really bad neighbors.
So
Okay.
That's what you're trying.
So I see what you're up to, Tom, because now you can't punish all of those neighbors next to you. You can only punish one of them.
You got 20 acres here.
Is that yours?
No.
Yeah, that's Tom.
Well, it's like mine.
You have those 4 pieces sitting in
Okay.
the corner of your
Yeah,
lot?
he
Yes.
does, but they're all
He has
electric
like
cars.
7.
Okay.
And you've got 20 acres here. This is far more impact on the neighborhood, on the environment, on the town.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think we totally agree.
Well,
I just think we disagree on what scale we should.
I think we
let
do
businesses
all
get
agree
to.
on that. The question is how far do you want to let that go on the big one?
That's what we have to answer.
Okay.
And I think that 5 is too
We
limited.
started out with one piece of equipment per acre. That fell apart. We had that discussion for a couple of nights. And I don't remember whether it was in planning or whether it was in
I think it
council.
was a combined meeting.
But we decided that we didn't want to get that big. We didn't want that many pieces of equipment. So we came back to the cap.
So I think you just do both of those. To don't take care
See-
of his immediate limit and
see what-
say one item or one piece of equipment per acre, maximum of 5 per whatever the lot size is. And then you've got this piece, this cap, that it also takes care of the little guys, so that they don't load up 5 pieces of equipment on each one of those lots.
Because, the picture is exactly what Tom's talking about. And I agree. So let's write it. How do we write that? First of all, I think trucking companies need to be different. In other words, his use is a lot different than mine. You guys know my use. Everybody's been by my place since we started this probably 10 times. So we all know, I think I'm the typical construction contractor. I mean, we've all driven around. I don't know how everybody else does it. So all I do is store, honestly, I've got 2 pieces of equipment that I use for hay. I've got one skid steer and I've got one little mini X that's got a wide bucket on it for cleaning stalls. They're never gonna go away. But
But that's agricultural.
Yeah,
That's different.
that's
It's not a small
Personal.
business.
It's not your business.
Well, that's true, but if I have
Your
a
hobby.
business license, if I give us a home occupation license, then they still look like they're part of my,
Yeah, they would.
they're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be
They're part of the load.
But I've seen you cleaning manure piles with them, so you could make the case that,
constantly.
that
He covets
that it's
them.
agricultural too.
Listen, this is the politics of it, how it works. Even if we were to get K and N worked out tonight, which we're gonna do, we got 5 more minutes. The
I'm
next
getting
council
Home Depot
meeting,
closed,
you're gonna
so-
have all these business guys back in here, and they're gonna be talking to support what they think once again. They're gonna be coming in, they're gonna say, why did you ever do that? We talked about this, we put it around 7 or 8 times, this is what we come up to send to planning and zoning. So even if we get those changed and we reduce them down, now you're gonna have that opposition that comes back to town council.
Yep.
And they're gonna say, why did you change that? And you shouldn't have, and we agreed upon this, we talked about this. So that's the politics of it. Now, I don't know, I put a proposal in a year and a half ago, and I said, anybody that has 4 employees is out, anybody that has more than 4 vehicles is out. It was a 4-4-4-4-4 rule. And we're getting closer to that all the time.
Well, I'm kinda like you should just zone the whole town commercial and forget this.
Or just put up
Because
those
it's what we're doing
gates.
anyway.
I'm sitting here trying to protect the interests of these business guys a little
I know.
bit. But they've been here,
But-
they've had more to lose than the
I
average
agree. I agree
citizen.
with that. Well, I don't know.
I don't know that
I
that's
don't know
true.
that that's true.
Okay, let me rephrase that.
Um,
Because we all have the same thing to lose.